So now that our appetizer is done, let's move on to the main course. And tonight I've selected to make a pinwheel meatloaf, which is essentially a meatloaf where you roll up a spinach and mushroom mixture in the center of the meatloaf. Now I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm actually going to make little meatloaf muffins where I'm going to put half of the meatloaf mixture in the bottom of a muffin pan, then I'm going to put some of the spinach mushroom mixture and then top it off with more of the meat mixture. So let's find out what the original recipe calls for. So the original recipe calls for 1 10-ounce package of frozen chopped spinach, thawed, drained, and squeezed dry, 1 tablespoon butter, 1 cup sliced mushrooms, half a cup chopped onion, half a cup fine dry breadcrumbs, 1 egg, a 1/4 cup parsley, half a teaspoon salt, 1 pinch ground black pepper, 1 pinch ground nutmeg, 1 pound ground beef, half a pound lean ground pork, 1 cup shredded cheddar cheese, half a cup fine dry breadcrumbs, 1 egg, 2 teaspoons Worcestershire sauce, 3/4 of a teaspoon salt, and a 1/4 teaspoon of freshly ground pepper. So first of all, we're going to make the filling. So I'm going to get my heat going here. And it says to melt the butter in the pan. So again, I'm using one of my vegan buttery sticks here. This is Earth Balance vegan buttery sticks that I'm using, but any vegan margarine would work in this case. Let's just melt that down. The margarine is nicely melted now, so obviously this is not half a cup of onion. I didn't think half a cup of onion sounded like a lot. So I chopped up a whole onion, and I'm just going to use half of what's in here. So I'm supposed to add this and the mushrooms. Again, I'm using more than a cup of mushrooms here just because a cup didn't sound like a whole lot. And I like mushrooms. So we're basically going to cook this until the onions are translucent, and hopefully by then the mushrooms will be cooked too. Okay, it looks like our onions and mushrooms are ready. So the next step says to add the onion and mushroom mixture to the spinach. Get that all in there. And then I'm going to add the breadcrumbs, salt. Now I do not have parsley, so I'm just leaving that out. Pepper. And I happen to have fresh nutmeg here, so I'm going to use this. I'm just going to grate a little bit of nutmeg in here. Should be plenty. Now I'm just going to stir this together. And the last thing that I'm supposed to add to this is 1 egg. Now, in this case, I'm going to use tofu. And basically what I've done is I took a package of soft tofu, soft silken tofu, and I put it in the blender until it came out like that. So for every egg that I have to replace, I use a 1/4 cup of the blended tofu. So I only need 1 egg. So I'm just going to use 1/4 cup. And then I'm just going to mix everything together. So there's our filling done. And I'm just going to put that off to the side until I'm ready to use it. So now I'm going to work on the actual meat mixture. So if you recall, the ingredients called for 1 pound of ground beef and then half a pound of lean ground pork. So what I'm going to be using today is Eve's Veggie Ground Round. Now, you don't have to use Eve's. There are certainly other products that you could use. If you can't find an actual veggie ground round like this, even a veggie burger crumbled up would probably work. But in this case, I'm going to use this. And I'm going to use a package and a half because it called for 1.5 pounds of beef, or meat, I should say. And one of these packages, you know, roughly equals about 1 pound of meat. So that's why I'm going to use a package and a half. So I'm going to pour that in there. And again, I've never attempted to make meatloaf before, so I really don't know how this is going to turn out. But if this is your first time veganizing a recipe, I maybe wouldn't do something as complicated as this. I love veggie ground round for things like chili, so you might want to start off with a simple recipe like chili where all you're really replacing is the ground beef in there. There's half a package. Now, I'm also going to add that leftover onion, even though the recipe didn't call for it. I used to put onion in my meatloaf before I became vegan, so I'm putting onion in. And then I have some breadcrumbs, some salt. I'm going to put some garlic in. Again, this was not called for, but I think garlic should go in everything. Now, it called for Worcestershire sauce, which is not vegan because it is made from anchovies. You can get vegan Worcestershire sauce. I do not have any right now, so in that case, I'll use soy sauce. Now, again, this was not called for, but I'm going to put some ketchup in there. And then for the shredded cheddar, I'm using Daiya vegan cheddar cheese. And then again, this says to use 1 egg. So I'm going to use another 1/4 cup of my blended tofu. And then I'm going to mix this all together. Now, quite frankly, I find it hard to mix with a spoon, so I'm going to use my hands. Don't worry, they're clean. I just find that sometimes using your hands is the best way to actually get in there and mix everything together nicely. All right, my mixture's looking pretty good now. It's all mixed up there. All right, so I'm going to get washed up and then I'm going to assemble these. Okay, I'm ready to put these together. So like I said, the original recipe basically was to take this mixture, roll it out between 2 sheets of plastic wrap, then to spread the spinach mixture on that and then roll it up. I'm not exactly sure how well this mixture will hold together, so that's why I've opted to do it in the muffin tins instead. So I'm just going to take a little bit of my meat mixture and put it in the bottom here. Then I'm going to take some of my spinach, put it in on top of that. And then I'm going to top it off with my meat. And there's one little mini meatloaf muffin done. So I'm just going to continue doing this until I've used up all of the meat and all of the spinach mixture. So I've done half of these now, and I realize that I've got quite a bit of this mixture left. So what I'm going to try, again, because I like different, I'm going to try and mix in the rest of the spinach mixture into the meatloaf mixture. And then I'll see which one actually works out better. Okay, so there are my completed little meatloaf muffins. Half of them have the spinach mixture in between the layers of the fake meat, and then half of them I mixed in the spinach mixture into the fake meat. So we'll see which ones work out best. Now, because my guests aren't coming until later this evening, I'm going to refrigerate these, and then I'll put them in the oven when my guests arrive. Now, the original recipe said to cook this for about an hour, but that was in a loaf pan. So obviously, being in individual muffin pans, it's going to take much less time. Plus, this doesn't really have to cook. It really needs to, everything just needs to kind of heat through. So chances are I'll probably put these in the oven for about 15-20 minutes. I'll check to see how they are and then maybe cook them for a little bit longer. But these really shouldn't take any longer than, say, half an hour to cook. So there's my meatloaf muffins, and when they are cooked and ready, I will show them to you. So here are my finished meatloaf muffins. They turned out amazing. I ended up putting them in the oven for about 40 minutes, and I think we all agreed that the muffins that had the spinach mixture mixed into the meatloaf mixture was better than the ones that had the mushroom and spinach mixture in between the meatloaf mixture. My guests were thrilled, and they couldn't believe that these were vegan meatloaf muffins.